We're back in session. Everybody's ready. Everybody hear me? Yes. Okay, number 18 on the agenda today is budget workshop for fiscal year 2015-2016 to discuss budget requests for the departments for fiscal year 16 to take any action necessary. I have a statement I want to make. I just want to say this before we start. I've known most of you for over 20 years, and we have created a very good working relationship, as well as some friendships down the outside. And I just want to say that I have faith in every one of you to do the right thing and to not only ask for what you absolutely need for your department to run smoothly and efficiently. So with that said, I want you to also know that you know that your employees are a big factor. And to always remember that we lean on the taxpayer to make everything work. So keep that in mind. And also, with that said, I stand on the faith that I do have in you to know that you will create and will treat your employees well. And so keep that in mind as we go through this. Don't take anything that I say personal, please, because I have to cut some money here. So we'll start. Leanne, I think you're first up, but you don't have anything under, no changes on you. So just that one printer.
Yeah, for the checks.
Okay.
So, and that's it. And it's really, necessary. It's for our checks. So I didn't know if you want an explanation.
Nope, I already knew that.
And what we have is 12 years old. And so there's no backup. Okay. Those can't, we can't write checks. Okay. So.
Let me just go back and tell y'all where Carrie and I started. We started looking at all this. Everybody line item for line item, and we went with everyone that asked for an increase. We went and compared it to what they've spent so far, and we have adjusted according to that. So if they haven't spent as much as they've asked for, we kind of hit a happy medium in there. And also the first thing we cut was salary increases. We need to cut those out, and we'll see what we can come up with later on. So, okay. Okay.
So altogether, because it's a bigger printer, it's $1,790.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Carrie address that first. I'm sorry, I went straight to the revenue page that you were on a while ago before I went straight to the department. Sorry about that.
We did have some growth. We did have some growth this year that added about $534,000 to the general fund, and that's a 98% collection rate. And as the judge said, these numbers that you're seeing on this spreadsheet do have all the increases out, and it's what she was comfortably evaluated. So right now we're looking at $403,000 for our expenditures over our revenue.
The very first time we met, I think we cut about 800,000 out. And that's when we looked at the equipment. And so it went straight up again. So we're 403,000 under where we need to be, over where we need to be.
Carrie, is this with an increased tax rate, or what's the view? This
No,
is
that's with the effective tax rate.
the effective
The
tax
new
rate.
calculator with effective tax rate.
The no increase with what's in there, right? Correct. Okay, thank you, Judge.
Okay, so we're gonna go department by department, correct? Okay, so thank you, Leanne, for yours. Next one is tax assessor collector. Sherry cut 10,500 from stationery, right, Sherry? And supplies and postage. But she still has an increase of 22,000, right? Okay. That's not bad. Okay, do you have any questions on that?
I do have a question on Sherry's, the sheriff fee expense. 10,000, which was in there, that's not an increase. I was just interested to know, is that when the sheriff sales happen?
Yes, that's our publication fees.
post, the stationery and supplies that you mentioned, Judge. Is that that's just an increase in what's going out? You might have said that.
We've seen an increase in our postage because of motor vehicle. We're having more people pay online and through mail. And we put that secondary. Metal detector, we may see even more.
Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing, when they can pay online. What a concept.
And has it been, Sherry, has it been that significant? I'm looking back into 2010, 2011, so that line item almost has doubled $30,000 in the last 4 years. And is that, the stationery and supplies, the 74,000 account? And I'm going off of your budget, the budget worksheet, yeah, carries on that, okay.
Which year were you looking at?
We have.
11, 12, or 12, 13?
What we have listed on our printout is different on this screen. It actually goes back to 2010, 11, that fiscal year. And it's at 35,602.
We went out for bid this year for our statements and that did increase a little bit. And,
As opposed to doing it in-house? Or
we're going with a different company, if that's just the way the bids came back. We did it 3 years ago, and it came back at 24,000, so we still need some room in there. Printing cartridges have gone up. We have our purchasing agent all the time trying to search out the cheapest printing cartridges. Because we've seen an increase in that as well.
That's fine.
Is there anything else that you want to add, Sherry, is or take away from this? No.
Yeah, we try to keep it tight around as we can. I have a pretty good purchase order person. She watches out for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next one is district clerk, jury. I think when you cut some money out too.
Yeah, could you tell me where we are today on stationery supplies? You know, they were on them, I needed that for district court. Yeah, I cut, let's see, I cut a little bit out of the jury board, I put that 4,000. And, oh, and then the petty juries, I made 80,000, I put 50%. Because you have to cut 50%.
I did, yeah, I did. For those of you who don't know, the bigger departments, I sent the budget, I had Carrie send the budgets back to them and asked them to cut 15% if they could. And some did and some didn't, so I thank you for those.
So the figures we have are different.
Yes. 4,000 and jury commissioners. Does it say, is it? Did you get it?
Yes, jury board is 4 on our computer.
Yeah, okay, so you did get the changes.
On the computer it's 4, on our printout it's 45.
Oh, okay.
That's principally what we're gonna get.
Bring it on the screen.
Yeah.
Well, it was late last week that they asked for the change for the cuts, so that's where it went.
And then on postage, on jury, I'm on that one, it was 45,000, is that still 45,000?
May 42.
42, and last year, this current year, it was at 35.
Because they said we're having an increase in postage costs, that's why I did it. You know, we may still could go down to 40. So the maximum we've done is 41, and that was in 12, 13.
So when is the increase in postage going up?
It already has.
It already has?
How much was it?
Just had it a few.
We're guessing 1%. That didn't give us a little bit, you know, it all depends on the sort of thing. Special services like certified mail and such, they really always jack that up because they don't take in much of anything.
So if it does go up, it'll be the first of next year, so we need to be right.
We try to save it all the
How much is it now, 49?
What did I
So
put?
what's a stamp?
Oh,
I don't even know.
whether it's 49.
It's forever. It's forever.
Yeah. But we get reduced
I was
rates,
gonna say, don't we get reduced?
we get reduced rates on sending them out and return them. And I don't know exactly what the rate is. You know, maybe we could lower it again. We are getting a better, when we send them out, not having as many bad addresses. Because we started our jury person program, we put GPS on our jury program, so we're not sending as many to Raymond County as we have in the past. So we probably could lower that.
So do you wanna take it down to 40?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's minus 2,000, that helps.
And then on the petty jurors, I was taking it down to 800, yeah, 80,000.
Which one's,
Petty juror, 73. I had it at 95.
I'm taking it to 80.
Mhm. It looks like we had a whole bunch in, you know, in 2010 and 11, but we haven't had as much in 12 and 13. So,
anything else?
Choose two accounts, is that
Yeah.
right? Just so page 24 is the, on the original version, is 24 is that one.
are you doing jury, is that still jury?
That was still jury, we were just on, you wanna go ahead and do your,
Did you change anything on that?
2110, the district
Yeah.
clerk account.
I didn't get any change. You know, I think I could change stationery and supplies, not stationery and supplies. Because we're still printing paper.
yeah, that's gone up significantly, huh, because you have to print everything, okay.
I think we could change postage a little bit down, so maybe to 20,000.
Is that 20 right now?
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wanna do 18? No? Hey, 20 is good?
Yeah, I did.
Do I hear 15?
Judge, you also said that, you said the salary increases were taken out. I see that on the first account, but the 61,100, the assistants, there's a note off to the side I can't really see on the screen here.
Our price is 5%.
Oh, transfer position for indigent defense.
Yeah. So it's gonna be, yeah, one of the employees in the law library is gonna, is that still on? It's gonna come go over from her, just all it is transfer that budget over to her. It's actually a savings of,
But I thought they were gonna still do the same duties. Yeah.
she is,
But just not be.
she's gonna do indigent defense and indigent burials, and she's gonna take a cut in pay, because it just doesn't, it's not feasible to pay for what she's making right now, for that position, so.
Do y'all know what they do in these defense?
The duties will not change. The transfer from one department to another.
As per Judge Tanner's request.
Okay. So are we comfortable with that?
Oh, no, I'm not comfortable, but I can't have her start at a salary comparable to what some of your supervisors are making. That she's starting in the, you know, I'm trying to save her
Sure.
job, I'm trying to save her from, she's been here 12 years. And,
And every day whenever a person is arrested, they're evaluated as to being indigent or not. And most of the time they say, no, because I'm in jail, I have no income. You know, no matter what they had a day ago. But anyway, so then they go through the indigent defense lawyer list and
so here's what I'm asking, I do want you to teach someone else in your office how to do what she does, so if she is going on vacation, so that can do, because there's a time limit that they have to have a court attorney.
Okay.
There's a time, you know that, so, yeah, it's not hard.
Okay. It really kind of fits in with our criminal department.
And will this person be doing some work in the district clerk's office
Yeah,
as
well, you
well?
I don't anticipate it. I mean, because I think they've been pretty full with doing indigent defense and indigent bureaus. But if they are sitting around, sure they'll do work.
Okay, so you have something they can be doing if there's, okay, law.
Okay. There's always filing.
So this was an open position.
This was one that was in, Judge Tanner asked me if I would accept her into my department, because I have a different office, a space. And, it was not a position in my department, it was a position in the law library.
It's created, but there's not, it's budgeted, so there's no additional money. As a matter of fact, we're saving $6,000.
That's for those two positions.
It's just the one. The other
But
one's.
we're really
going
not
for
cutting
safety.
anything.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
Well, just a little bit, some of her
mhm,
salary.
mhm, yeah.
Yeah, but
But she's getting,
it's
she's.
still, we're not cutting a position.
No,
We're-
I mean, it was between me and Julie, I think, who had the space and who, could house her.
I had to talk about her like she was a dog or something. She's a very good employee, very loyal, and I just didn't wanna just walk in one day and tell her she didn't have a job anymore. So-
Okay, and the other
So
position,
she was kind enough with that.
So she's just resigning in your, she
She
report
isn't
to
there
you?
yet.
No, but when this
Yeah,
happens,
she'll report to
she'll
her,
report to
yes.
you, she'll logistically be in your offices, but her duties are remaining the same, and we're cutting her pay for the same duties.
I mean, we'll evaluate, you know,
that's what it
Well,
sounds like.
no,
I'm just saying that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
She's not, no, let me clarify that. She's not, she doesn't do indigent burials. Michelle does those.
Okay. but she
So it's
just
not the
does indigent
same. She's
defense.
adding an additional job. Okay, so she's doing indigent burials and indigent defense.
Oh, okay.
So we either give them a lawyer or we bury them. One of the other.
Bury the lawyers.
We might bury the lawyers.
So is she taking on more work than
A
Judge,
little bit.
with a reduction in salary?
That's what I'm hearing too.
I know. I'm just saying, you don't,
But is that,
Well, I guess since we
discuss
haven't-
this, her salary was out of whack anyway.
there's a lot.
Her salary was way out, and,
Okay.
Dave, just from a legal perspective, I mean, I'm just kind of asking the question, if the job duties are essentially staying the same, and I can't see my screen, so I don't know if Kay's in the audience from HR perspective, but if the job duties are staying the same, are there any
You're not
parameters around?
discriminating, it's,
You can do anything.
yeah, you can do whatever you want as far as salary. This is what so it's not, in other words, it's not illegal to move her to a different job. So,
Judge, you've already talked to her about this and she's fine.
I've talked to her a little bit, and I hate, you have no idea how bad I hate doing this.
I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with what you just said, and that the job is the same, which is transferring to a different department, but the salary is cut.
Well, her options are to leave.
I mean,
not
if
have-
she stayed in the same place, the budget, you could cut her salary, I don't have any doubt about that. And you'd be just fine, so all you're doing is just moving that position to another
Office.
office, and I will tell you, I mean, anyway, just speaking legally, it's okay to do that.
I would
As
love
long
to
as
start,
it's
I would
not-
love to leave,
it's
I'm
not
just saying,
discrimination.
but your people would not appreciate that, I'm sure, more than, she's making more than.
We're kind of used to it.
Yeah.
And I guess my concern is in defining what discrimination means in respect to the position.
You could eliminate one position and open another one, and she'd have to apply for it like everybody else.
Yeah,
You're
but
not
then
giving
that's
her
not
that
helping
option,
me,
so-
that's not helping us.
So that's fine.
Yeah, but that'd be eliminating the position in my office when we're working.
No, you're eliminating this other one, making one in yours.
We're just transferring the money, and she's got her own desk and her own computer, you know, there's nothing.
Issues with her.
No, she's still an at-will employee, and we're not doing anything to change that. It's not, she doesn't have a contract in her current position, is what I'm saying. And so she's an employee that can pay whatever you, think she's paying him. Anyway, legally speaking, I think it's okay. I'm not speaking to the other aspects of it. But from a legal standpoint, there's not a problem.
And we're sure, and this kind of takes it a step further, Judge, but we feel like we need to retain a position to do that. Didn't the courts years ago used to do the indigent defense referrals? If we feel like we need to retain a position,
The district, the county court at law judges, their secretaries do their own court appointments.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, so all Rhonda and Michelle do are the felonies. So if the district judges decide they will do their own court appointments, then she's out of the job. Point blank, that's it. So, but I don't know if they're gonna do that. So there you take it to another level. If they decide to do them, she's out of job. None, so I'm trying to.
Well,
That's what you're doing, we should get that. So we should then come back to the values.
with the efficiencies we're supposed to be getting from some of our computer programs, maybe we can at some point
And you can't like.
eliminate that position. Just a thought.
I hope we're not really looking at, what we're eliminating, this would be, and understand what I'm saying about the software, in case of numbers to be eliminated.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, JP number one. We didn't do anything in this one except that all the JP travel the same. And we increased her stationery supply. I know.
What was this MHP?
The travel, all the travel, we made it all the same.
We made it 4.
The travel education. I think that, and that may be something that, you might share this discussion across the board as far as the JP is concerned. I know JP before, that Jones had, issue with increasing that portion of the budget. And I understand why, because of the number of personnel that they have in there, and that probably would be the same for any of the JP, for their travel and education expenses, that what they had in the budget right now is not really sufficient. So I'm not sure if that is something that all the JPs were looking at as well.
Well, I know when we reviewed the travel policy, this has been a couple years ago, roughly we used $1,500 as the benchmark for travel. That included airfare, hotel, and not always, depending on location, it might be a little more, a little less, but 1,500 was kind of the threshold, so 4,000 is in there. That's definitely enough for the continuing ed that would be required, and then if they're trying to take staff to a training, I feel like that would be enough, but certainly open for discussion in any of our JPs.
One reason we were asking for this, you got 3 courts with 4 new clerks. So now all of a sudden we're having to train 4 new clerks. And in one JP office, it's both his clerks. And you're looking at about $700 to $800 per school per clerk. So that's why we were asking for this. Because 3 of the 4 courts have new clerks.
And also, I guess, depending on the requirement to retain their certification and credibility of credentials, how often is a travel required for the clerks in the respective offices?
For the clerks,
Yes. Is it something that's once a year, or is it could be more than that?
the schools are put on once a year. So you can send one clerk to one in one location and another clerk to another one in another location, if you want to send them both in the same year. If you have 3 clerks, like 1 and 3 have, it's hard to send all 3 in 1 year, so you kind of have to rotate. And so that's why we were asking for a little bit more, especially 2 new clerks in my office, 2 new clerks in Judge Herman's office, 1 new clerk in Judge Horn's office.
But is it required?
None of it's required.
Yeah.
The only thing's required is
Is that what you were asking?
but they're the ones running the office when they
Right,
don't
I know.
know how to do it, then, yeah. It's kind of yes and no. So, but anything would be great.
Well, but they increased it by $500, because you're sitting at $3,500 for this year, and they increased it by $500. All of you.
All 4 courts.
Okay.
4,000 per
Per court.
JP.
there anything else from that?
There's no equipment on JP1, is that right?
Did you say that one, you're increasing stationary supplies?
Yeah, she asked for an increase in
So how much?
that, 1,000. What, how much is it now?
It's
I'm sorry.
11, and she asked for 12.
Is it 12, or is it 12?
Did you take 9 to 12 also, or just?
Yours is at
You're
11.
11.
Yours is at 11.
I'll send one. You got for-
So we're being Judge Jackson.
Yeah, we might as well, yeah. Is there anything for you, Judge, that you needed to discuss? I know,
I didn't know.
the tech fund, JP Tech Fund,
I'm sorry, what?
the JP Tech
That
Fund.
fund, yes. Y'all have that.
What page is it?
It's about 250, Justice Court Technology Fund.
Special funds.
12 of our special funds.
I put in there, $8,900 and, I'll have it last, $60 for equipment, which included the scanners, the signature pads, and the monitors for the new software. And then we put in $7,500 for the software for the telesoft or Amazon, I don't know how you pronounce it, for the new software that's coming in.
Now, this is the fund that's shared by all the JP courts, is that right?
Yes, and this fund it's all grouped in my fund, under my budget, but it's for all four
Oh.
courts. It's not just for me. So the 8,900 is for 4 courts, and the 7,500 is for 4 courts. It's not for $8,900 for each court.
So the estimated fees and revenue are 19,000? And you're requesting 38,000 to spend?
For what?
I'm looking at 250.
Oh, well, then there's education and travel,
So there's another 15,000 in there for travel?
and no, there's 4,000 in there for stationary supplies also. That's in there every year. This, the 89 and the 75 is something that's new this year.
Where, I'm sorry, where is the 89 and 75?
I'm not.
89 is under equipment,
And actually, there's not anything under in plus. It's actually 11,480 because I don't know what JP had, so those two dollars together. So you're 8,900.
yeah, the 8,900 is for all 4 courts,
Right.
and the 7,500 is for all 4 courts.
What page is that on? Is it page 12 on the?
Right, you'll see in the far right hand corner, the last figure is $11,480.
Yes.
That figure Judge Jackson was speaking about is in there along with another request for the So that's why
What page is that?
it's there.
Number 12 are special funds.
What was the one with the judge?
So Commissioner, that was a different attachment that we got after we got the actual binding material. Just, it was with this stuff, so if we don't have this, we don't get that. So the 15,000 that you have in there for education and travel, how do you use that separate than what we allocate the 4,000 that we just talked about?
Well, it depends, some of the schools, possibly from year to year, we go to have technology influence in it. And if those increments are in there, then that, some of that travel can be paid for out of the education fund. So every year, Carrie budget, puts money in here for all 4 courts, $2,500 a piece, for a total of $10,000. Now, if you go to something that has an IT or technology based component in it. it's
Specifically dedicated for that,
Specific money dedicated for specific things.
I guess my question is, your requests are more than your revenues on that, and since that's such a special dedicated fund, your expenses, at least on the printout, are 38,000 and your revenue's only 19. I mean, I know we have a little in there,
It's actually 183,000.
183.
Because for years I had spent.
but this also is the fund that we reviewed for the JP package, the purchase.
Yeah, some of that's going to that.
how much is that?
But there's still, we try not to use more than half of that fund for that software.
And then Carrie, where can we find that non-capital equipment, the 11,480? Is that in our equipment recap?
I thought it was, but I don't know if I did. I don't have to find that just for
But I don't know where, yeah, but I don't know where in Texas what they're buying. I didn't know if it was over here. There's something technology related,
Yeah.
especially if they're new software. To train. Is this it?
Yes, this is the request.
Is that on a particular page and or it's not in here?
I don't believe it's in there. I apologize.
Okay. So Judge, is this for every JP that's, will you walk us through these requests or?
Well, the scanner, the 10 scanners, the $5,250 is for every clerk, and the 4 JP offices for scanning in documents that come in that are to be filed in the court. Signature pads is for $1,310. It's for every JP court to have a signature pad and to have one backup for people signing in their suits or their credit cards or whatever, $100. The touchscreen monitors there's 4 of them, and they're for on the bench for judges using the new software on the bench to pull up the cases, go through the cases, make notes on the cases while they're in trial. The last thing, I have no idea, that's not mine.
Judge Herman, the non-specified for 2,500?
2,500.
It's for education. You can link the technology fund.
Okay, we've already got that.
Okay, that's
So
what I
we'll
was-
take that off.
That can be removed off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Judge, can you use any of this money in the Justice Court Tech Fund for travel? Can you use any of that? Or is
Yeah,
it
that's what
just
that-
in case, I mean, can you use
that's
some of
what
that, do you still need 4,000 for education travel? You do, on top of?
Yes.
I think for this year, it might make sense with the new technology package, but I definitely think that's a discussion for the next fiscal year. But I can understand if with the new package coming out, if you guys need additional technology travel to train your staff or whatever that is.
Well, that training will take place here with the new changes in the laws, with the new changes in the court 2 years ago, with fines of travel going up.
you were on to something there, and that was my intent with that, in case y'all couldn't give us the extra money. If we can link education with technology, then it can pay for it, and that is definitely something
Can we
we
do
can
that?
look at.
Is that possible or
We've been
not?
doing it for the last 4 years.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
So that roughly gives each office, each JP office, $7,750 for travel. If you use the 4,000 in there and divide out that 15,000 that's in there, that gives you about
Do
7,000.
4,000 plus 2,500, $6,500. That's what we have for travel, if you give us the 4,000. Well, it is, but when you have clerks that have to go,
But they don't, but that's not every
Clerks
year.
don't have to go.
no.
But
But
I
the
understand if they're
new
new,
ones
they
need to
need the
seriously
training
go.
if they're new, but after the training, 1 year, they wouldn't have to go again for 3 or 4 years.
Well, we rotate, so it's every third year one goes.
And is that the only travel that we are concerned with as far as the clerks and JP office?
You guys have to have so many hours.
Well, we have to have our hours, and then we have our associations we're part of, we have to travel for that.
And that's on the county dime, not the association dime.
The association's not gonna pay for us to travel.
Unless he's got a position, an official
Right,
position.
this is paid through the state, if you're a state officer or something. But it's good.
And so there's an additional 5,000 in there for the request, because there was 10,000 last year. Can we not, or is there a reason for the additional 5?
I'll just combine all those classifications, JP's, what Judge Jackson had, and what they did.
Can we not just make it 10?
I'm a little concerned about us paying for association. I mean,
Let's
Y'all,
come up with,
do y'all know the 10-year association conferences?
not without hours, not without continuing
Well, yeah,
education.
we get hours, yes, it's training, it's not just a go to meet and have fun thing. I mean, yeah, it is training.
how much training is that, how many hours do you get for association?
Usually it's, I don't know, let's say, 24 hours plus, somewhere right in there. It just depends on how they have it scheduled out, somewhere in that neighborhood, 20 to 24.
Well, if you go to judges, how many get that?
The judges' schools put on, and the clerk schools are 16 hours, and the judges' schools are 20 hours.
And how many are you required a
You're
year?
required 20.
So you're looking at
Yeah, we do. a little
40
bit
hours
more.
per year.
We do a little bit more, but it's different training, it's not the same thing over and over and over.
And getting overtrained. That's a lot of money for association stuff. You know, if I go anywhere, it's not on county stuff, you know.
So is it
County
just
conference.
associations or is it continuing training along?
It's association with training. I mean, the association, JPCA, is the association that is in charge of and rules our training for the Texas Justice Court Training Center. So it's not the other way around. The training center does not exist to benefit JPCA. JPCA is the head of our training center. So they dictate what the training is, who's at the training center, who's the head of the training center. They dictate all this stuff through our association. So it's kind of back that our association is in charge of it. So,
How many hours are you allowed to roll over every year?
none,
If you get anything in excess of your continuing ed?
nothing rolls over.
So anything extra you do does not roll over for next year?
Starts anew. And I don't know anybody's, y'all roll over?
It's either 6, I think it might be 6 or 9, I can check that here. Because I could understand if there's something you could roll over for next year and use with hours, but.
Yeah, there's nothing. I've never heard of that.
I
I
don't
mean,
even,
we can, if we start looking at this, we've got a lot of associations, a lot of trainings.
Yeah, we're not telling association.
Something I want to say, but I
Yes.
better not say it. But I think it's important that our people are involved in it and they are trained. So as long as people are going and are attending, I don't have that big problem. I've been to a lot of sessions of late, and you don't see some of the folks that were there the first day. And the second or third day. But anyway,
That's true. And if it is, that's what I was emphasizing, that there's continuing training that's useful for us and for our employees for this county, that benefits this county more. I would want to nitpick that. But certainly something needed, continuing hours of ability to perform.
And commissioners can carry 8 hours over, just correct.
You're the only ones I know that. Yeah,
Mine does. Mine
I've
carries over.
never, I say, I've never seen where it says we can or can't. That's the first time I've ever even heard that brought up.
Carry on this 250 fund, and I don't know what the court feels, but that's the 15,000 that's in there. Current year is 10,000. I would think we could keep it at 10,000, that still seems,
I don't know where you're getting 15,000 from.
Your request and everything's all added together. You were all for the request.
Oh, for the 20,000. Because we've always, you've kind of always been at the 10,000. We really need to turn this specific request.
even if at 2,500 each, we're still at 10 versus 15.
You're correct.
Okay. And on that line, Carrie, my education and travel is a little high, but it was for this year only, because I had to have 400 hours. It just seemed like it. Can we cut mine back down to about 2,000 for travel? Because the mental health coordinator has her own travel, so if I need to borrow from her, I can. And they've got their training for a while. And I go to TAC conferences and they reimburse me.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I've
a
never,
portion of everything.
what's the time? I never been there.
Good, it's good. I think that's enough for 16 hours, I think it's good, okay?
Carrie, one more thing on the 250 account that you were just on, the technology one. I saw a big jump on stationery and supplies, but I caught that quickly when you were moving over. What is the,
4,000?
yeah, current year, there's nothing in
There's
there.
nothing, I asked Gary to do that, and I still can't remember one.
I think it's in anticipation of the new software coming in.
It had
I just
something
don't
to do with it.
know for sure. I think
We don't know what's gonna happen to our paper, benefit.
Thank you.
Okay, JP two, you want to compensate your clerk for, interpretation, right?
Yes, ma'am. She reads documents, she translates documents, not just for us, other people come upstairs sometimes. She translates for them, I mean, she does it all the time. It just seems right.
How much do you want to compensate? 100 a month?
You can take it out of mine, you can direct it.
Judge, I do think that's a policy though. We have a lot of employees that do that in this whole county. And I think that's a whole policy change if we do it for one employee. I mean, we need to take a step back if we're gonna start compensating for translation services. Often, if we do that, there's also some certification that they go through, because we're reimbursing them. So just a word of caution, I'm not sure
Well,
what.
then I don't want to give it to her for that, I want it just because she's awesome. Great employee, how's that?
Got some awesome employees, Judge.
We can't do that either.
There's not an awesomeness category.
There's not. If it was, this page would be
It'd be
full.
full.
If I don't ask you, you tell me.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay. So let's remove that. And there's no change for JP four. I don't have anything except travel.
And you took the salaries down.
Okay, that comes to the county attorney. So, what are you doing?
I'm standing here ready for you.
You cut $1,700 and you don't ask me for anything. You may be seated.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, that continues.
Okay, good. District attorney is not here right now. He also was one of the ones that I sent it back and he cut 50%. I'm gladly surprised that he did that. But he wants us to consider a cell phone allowance, right?
Didn't we get one last year as well, a cell phone allowance?
We may have, you know, he was converted, the position was over at the city working in just victim assistance. He converted that to another investigative position, and this is the position he's asking for.
So what do we, how much are we asking? Do we have this on the screen here? I'm sorry, how much?
$480.
480.
The dues on the printed, oh, it looks like that came back down, okay.
Actually, on that, he and I was on the CC, that's I put it on.
Curious, you have to go on.
I don't think it is.
It is. Is it? Not. We're trying to. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, you're really trying to talk
I know. Thank you. Now you don't have to talk as loud, because it's gonna help you. Okay.
What about he had requested some equipment, did he not?
Yes, but I believe he's already purchased that out of the current funding.
Okay, so this non-capital 2,400 is gone? Okay, there it is. And the cell phone allowance you requested, is that in there already?
Like last year's. There it is.
Okay, you were, questions on that?
Now, who's that cell phone for?
The new investigator.
Do you know how many total he has in the office with allowances, cell phone allowances? Because I know that there's a couple cell phone allowance questions through the budget.
Each of the investigators, and I think he has 6 now, and he has 2 attorneys that are on call, that also have it.
So approximately 8-ish.
I believe so.
Yes, your attorney's on call.
And we don't own the phones, or do we own them?
No, we pay them $40 a month for them to make their personal phone banking for these issues.
Scott,
But it becomes, because we're paying so many, it becomes information that can be taken in as information requests. If someone asks for the information,
I'm not sure on the
on investigator, maybe not, but, you know, if we're paying on a cell phone, then it is open to be investigated for information.
I assume so, that would be a big question.
And I would think, Commissioner, even if we weren't paying for it, depending on the position, it's still open for investigation.
I'm thinking that's true.
I know ours are, just because we have them up here.
Everything we do.
Yeah, I think public information is really.
So, the West End is going to be on call.
I'm sorry, yeah, he said he has two attorneys on call all the time. I'm trying to figure out why.
Search warrants, sexual assault, exam,
Okay.
approval.
Okay, they just have to be on call just in case they're called out.
Yeah, mainly I think it's for, in case they need the case, at least for some law enforcement agency needs a search warrant or there's someone has to approve a medical exam for sexual assault.
They can do that. They can approve all that, get a search warrant on their signature, they have to go get a judge's sign.
They've got it drafted up.
Oh,
If they
okay.
need
I
it,
got you.
they'll call and say.
Okay. All right, I need to watch more.
But your question was you leading to, and I had no answer, I was saying, well, find out what is it to.
thinking of two. But I can read it.
You would think it would be one, and they just wrote it.
I'll double check.
Okay, along that same office, the victim assistance program, I want to explain that, Carrie, they combined it under one grant, both of them, for the two people that do victim assistance over there.
Correct.
So how's that, the 45,000 to 150,000, that's a pretty good jump, is that, that's two people?
Right, we used to have two separate grants that funded our victim assistance, and one grant went away several years ago, so the county was just funding it, but this year, the legislature approved more funding in the VOCA grant program, and so we were able to get all three people in on that one grant, so we divided it into one department since it's under one grant. And you're correct, Judge, our funding now is 45,000, and it'll go up to 150,000 if we're approved.
Okay.
So Carrie, the printed version of this VOCA, all that has been zeroed out because it still had dollar amounts on the printed version, right?
Right. It's all getting combined now into,
The 5330, no,
It's all in both.
it's all in the 5350, the victim assistance?
it's all in 5340 and 5350 will go away.
Okay. So that's the assistant judge that you're speaking to, the salary, just the position.
So do we know if this is gonna be approved, or when will we know that? I mean,
When it starts September 1st, so we guess with the building,
pretty quick.
and we're not.
And it usually is.
Right, we've had this, it's not changing the bottom line, it's just a few different things.
If any of you have not ever been to any of the victims assistance programs that they offer, it's pretty interesting. You should go and see what these people that work for us are doing an excellent job in consulting with these people and consulting them. So it's a really good program. Really good. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, the next one is human resources. You've asked for a subscription.
Yes, ma'am. This is not a usual subscription.
Yeah, it seems a little high for a better house and garden.
Yeah. This is actually through BLR, Business and Legal Resources. This is a website subscription. It's a 3-year subscription that is a tool to design and manage compensation. And I see it as a very effective and inexpensive tool for us to use as we work through our compensation issues. It includes lots of market data, different strategies, tools to actually develop pay structures so we can begin to develop our structure and store it within the program as we work through it. It also allows for 3 key users, and so my vision for it is to allow the compensation committee to do the groundwork and then assign 3 persons or up to 3 persons that would actually be allowed to enter in data into the system. I did talk to BLR last week, and it actually came off of the price by $538, so we could reduce that slightly.
So is the goal to use this data and start to formulate some type of
Pay structures.
control points, tiers?
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, thank you so much. The next one is information and records management. And this is the other position that I was moving out of the library in December. She was asking for a new person. I said, here, take mine. So she's gonna take Michelle. And it's the same thing there with because she's been here about a year. She's actually making more than a little bit, but she was actually making more, it's just messed up. So she's gonna take her cut and pay off.
She'll have new job duties in your office. But you've been asking for a position for a couple of years, if I remember correctly, at least.
And,
So this worked out good.
we've started, big time scan of microfilm and everything, so we need another regular over onto that job all the time. And so, somebody to pick up the slack.
And again, she starts out at the bottom.
Right,
Right.
because most of my employees have 17 years and up. So, you don't want to start somebody new and have to, making more than they make, or it's even around right now. I don't think I'd want to go back to my office if that happened. And I have added into this budget, desk and chair, which if we don't need that, that'd be a 1737 off of that amount.
Yeah, she's got that already, she was. Not literally.
And that was in stationery supplies, so that'd be close to 2,000 less.
You took that out. On the equipment, you had requested a Mac 5 film scanning, is that still in there, or is that?
Yes.
I showed this being cut.
Scanner.
This scanner's not been cut.
The 69,000?
I never got anything about it, but.
It has.
They're surprised.
Hello.
This was one of the things we talked about, there's not enough money in the court records management fund to cut it. And we originally had it in there, half out of the court records management and half out of the general fund. But really, first time we went through making cuts, that's one of the items that we got cut. Usually 34 out of each fund.
And there's not 34 or 5 in the,
There's 34, the entire scanner is 69.
Right.
But yes, we can take 34, 5 out of the special fund, but it would take 34, 5 out of the general fund.
And you need it, don't you? I could tell by looking at this.
Yeah, I did a report with y'all now. Mr. Church does have it. And we've done more than what I have right now, but we've already scanned 645 rolls of film, which amounts to 1,612,500 images, and that's just scratching surface. So it's a lot that we have to do still, and it allows the clerks specifically right now to just get on their computer and pull those files or volumes up and print from their computers, which given, and Julie can tell you, given the fact that reader printers are hard to come by and very expensive, it's a big thing. And I mean, you can ask the two clerks how they feel about it. I think they.
So if your fund, your specialized fund can pay 34, 5 out of it, then the county will pay the rest, is that what you're saying? Is that right?
However,
And that would, come out of general.
Like I said, we can do half of that.
Okay.
is that replacing a current scanner or adding a new one to the mix?
adding a new one.
Adding a new one,
Yeah.
for the volume that you were talking about, okay.
So we could do.
Do we ever foresee some changing in how we do this records management?
Well, there are some places that go strictly digital and nothing goes to microfilm, but, and if we're told to do that, then we'll do that. I don't believe it's the best thing to do because, the microfilm will last 500 years and you don't have to worry about, not being able to have the right equipment to read it or any of that. And microfilm, you can look with a flashlight through a piece of film and see a document. So that's, that's not gonna go bad. It's not gonna depend on a new version of anything, it's just gonna always be there.
So in the long run, or haul, it's certainly needed and, paid for.
You just need definitely need two, types of record. If you have digital, you need one other. And if you're gonna have one other, you know, the microfilm is the long lasting. If it got wet, rained on, whatever, all you have to do with microfilm is run it right back through the machine and it's fine. Paper, not so much. So, you know, it's partly gonna depend on the people that create the record, as to what we do. And we basically work for them. So, as a certified records manager, I would keep, just for permanent record, not for anything that's short term, just for permanent record.
So, is that the recommendation of the state, is it the state library that recommends this, or tells us how to do this?
Well, they say more than one thing. They will say microfilm is good. They have said if you digitize, keep the paper. And then, you know, it just kind of all depends on, who's there and what the discussion is. I know that legally, digitization is accepted. So, you know, it's just all in how safe you want to be.
And then Carrie, on the special fund 240, it's also under your oversight, is that right, the right special fund? The court records management one?
Yeah. Well, you were talking about using that one now. Right.
But I don't know if there's any.
What was that number?
It's on page 10 of the special funds. So there's a little bit of a salary increase there. What comes out of there?
I have one salary still in that account. But should not have an increase on it all. It's not real. Until he'll give us a raise.
That's not much.
Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you. Elections department, she just needs to make that, part-time position full-time. She's been asking for that for several years now. They are very busy.
I do have a
No,
concern.
that's good. Go ahead, I think that's what we're doing. Go ahead.
So she got the part-time position, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I'm leaning on you, Commissioner, because I know you were overseeing that department before I did. So we got the part-time position to help offset that. I've been working with Laura for a couple of years, well, for the full year, I'll just say that, the full year, trying to potentially start to outsource it. We roughly have, and I don't have the report right in front of me, but I want to say 2.5 million, and that's on the conservative end. There's probably 3 sitting in a bucket that we've been collecting for a long time, it's just sitting there. So we worked with other counties to try to see what they're doing. Lubbock County outsources it. They actually use a different law firm than what their tax assessor uses for competition to keep them both kind of working on things. But long story short, they outsource so that they don't have to hire more people on this kind of bad debt sitting out there. I know Laura has done some work with some of the district judges and talked to some of maybe our JP courts. I know we have a little bit of a hybrid system, but we've not moved much on that at all. And I would like to see us take some strides to figure out how to manage that better before we just answer it with put in a new full-time position.
She's having a conference in a couple of weeks. She invited me to watch it. I'm sure she invited you.
She did.
Is it about that?
That is another, yes, continuing that discussion,
Yeah,
but
so
we've not
she's-
done anything about it.
Okay, yeah. So she's working on it. I can't find it here on my calendar.
So what you're, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. There's about nearly $3 million sitting to be collected.
Uncollected funds.
Uncollected.
And I'll pull the report.
And you're saying some counties hire somebody to make those collections like we do delinquent taxes and things like that?
Some counties outsource after they've tried for 90 days or 120 days. They outsource it and let a law firm take over and say, collect all you want, you get the small percentage and we get the rest. Today, we do nothing with that, it sits there. And other than if time allows, then we get to it, but time never allows, we're all pretty busy, they're busy in that department. They're trying to manage the new ones coming in.
I just wonder how that's set up. Is it, you'll get paid if you collect?
Yes, they only get paid if they collect. Mhm. And I mean, we did some groundwork, Dave helped us, we put together, we really piggybacked off of what already exists out there for some of our courts, because we do have a hybrid system. Our collections department does not collect for every court, under the Potter County umbrella. So we use that. We even potentially were getting ready to go out for bid to say what law firms want to do this, who would be interested in it. There is interest, but there were some concerns about if some of the judges would like to do that, if they wouldn't like to do that, and it just didn't get off the ground. And so I share all that backstory just to tell you that I would love for us to do something progressive before we just start slotting new positions in there. That's certainly my opinion.
I like that.
Do you have a an agency in mind that you talk to?
We didn't specifically talk to anyone kind of on purpose because we wanted it to go out to the normal RFP process. I'm looking at David to keep me honest of what I'm calling request for qualifications, RFQ. So we didn't necessarily go out to anybody. We were trying to get in-house and the policy in order, but other counties do it.
Is this something we need to take up at a commissioner's meeting and vote on?
I'd be willing to do something like that if you guys
I think
deem appropriate.
I think very appropriate.
So are you for the full-time position?
I am not currently. And again,
Who else is not?
You know, until such time as we maybe get this particular item figured out.
I think there needs to be some more discussion in this. I know that Commissioner Webb, I've spoken about this as well, and I visit with all the side outline of legal work and everything done.
And I have spoken to Laura too, so I don't feel like that would be surprised that she's hearing that from me at all, because we work very good together, and I think they do a great job in the office, so I don't want any of that to be heard a different way. They do a great job. I'm always thinking about the taxpayer, and I would like to say that we tried this, we put this in place before we just put it in
That's a lot of
position.
money.
So what's the difference in the salary for that? Going from part-time to full-time?
Maybe 340.
And roughly, and I'm looking at old reports, so I'm sure these numbers have changed, but there was about 3.3 million sitting. And if we could collect some of that, then we can come back to the table and say, now there's money. We could do a lot in this county.
And that's all true, but what does that have to do with letting her have a full-time employee?
Because we're just doing the same thing that we've always done, and we're just expecting. When we gave the part-time, and I remember these budget conversations clearly, when we gave, she asked for a part-time, we went through this whole thing, we said, let's do a part-time, and we'll make it work.
Well, the suggestion was that if the collections increased because of this part-time, we would full-time. Of course, I don't know whether that has happened or not, but it sounds like it has not happened. The collections have not increased with the part-time.
Well, I think it depends on how you report what if you're talking about the number of cases versus the dollars.
Well, that's
You know.
what we were talking about, the dollars, if the collections increase, to support making them full-time. And we would do that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything with drastic increases to that nature. Now, she may have put something together and gave that to you, Judge, but I have not seen anything personally.
Then let's put that aside until we discuss it further. Okay, the next one is the Welfare Law Library Fund, Indigent Defense Fund. Carrie, you wanna tell them what you did with the city library?
Since we do collect law library fees, we would like to still make those resources available. So I talked with the librarian in the town branch, and they would love to have a couple of computers in their research department, the online subscription. And they would like to do that, we'll put together an agreement and provide the subscription and then provide the space.
So we still have that option for them to do stuff up.
The city is very interested in offering that through their library, and they would have more hours than what anyone can access. Keep it here.
I can see where they might even kind of turn this into an education session to teach people how to do that. Maybe they shouldn't because they're not lawyers or research, so I know there's always kind of that gray area, but to help people learn how to search and how to maybe use the tool.
Okay, any more questions on that?
Was that page 45 or 65? Where were you?
The library fund itself is under the special funds on page 2. Just to know that the law library fund, in my memory, has never been self-sufficient. The general fund always has to supplement it to have its needs.
And I believe in the last 10 years, we have spent $635,000, something like that. Funding it,
Yes.
funding it, and all of it's been online, we're buying books that we don't. That's why we're not having any more.
And so that's Fund 215, Carrie?
Correct.
Is that even on the screen or no? I didn't, because what we have printed still has salaries on it.
I have not pulled the salaries out of here, and until we know for sure, I didn't want to do anything until we know for sure if y'all want to partner with the city on this. If we do partner with the city, the only expense you'll have is just under $100,000 in subscriptions if you choose to go with LexisNexis and Westlaw.
And that's who we've been with forever, right?
Correct.
So we wouldn't, I see no reason to change, do you?
No, and both of those companies are working on packages that would be suitable.
Do you see, are you satisfied, Dave, with
I think it's a great
the
idea.
two we have? Are you satisfied, Scott, with the two people we use?
Yeah, I think it would actually broaden, to the commissioner's comment, I think it would actually broaden access to legal resources. I know I teach a class where I tell my students they need to do legal research, and that'll make it easier for me to do that.
Yeah.
So the spotted line would be under 100,
It would be
Versus-
right at 100.
excuse me.
It would be right at 100, which is about the amount of the law library fees that we bring in annually.
And then the line items that you have in there right now for salaries, that will just get zeroed out with the transfers?
Correct.
Okay, any more? Okay, county extension services. Sure, you wanna explain that, we're doing something with auto allowance?
I just wanted to recommend it
Okay.
because we file several reports with the extension service every year, and they want part of the salary broken out as auto allowance. And it would be much easier on all of us if we did the same with our budget. And we also thought they have a line item for them to purchase the gas, and we thought we might increase the amount of their auto allowance and do away with the gas cards and just pay them a monthly allowance for the gas to make up the difference.
Is that good for the y'all look surprised?
There's also, there was a request for cell phone allowances, is that still in there? I thought there was, for agents.
So let me ask you a question, Carrie, the fuel budget. What if we allow them so much money per month, but they don't use their car for 2 weeks on, because they're on vacation? Just, wondering what about that, when they don't really use their car for business?
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm suggesting going to an allowance, because, they send in a mileage report, and I took about 2 or 3 years worth of mileage reports, and if you backed into the miles per gallon, some of them were getting
Way
like
more.
2.5 miles per gallon, so we know that all the gas was not going for business use anyway, which, you know, when you give an auto allowance, you know that's gonna happen.
Okay.
But, we just thought this might be a cleaner way to provide it.
How much are we spending now?
Well, there's $3,600 in each salary, that is considered car allowance, and then we have a $6,000 budget. So we talked about maybe going to a $450 a month auto allowance, and that would make up the $300 a month that's already in their salary, and then that would give them another $150.
They wouldn't be logging everything like they do now.
I think they still have to
Stick it
log
up
in for
there.
A&M, is that
Right,
correct?
we have to log it for the other half, so that's one of the few streamlined processes that we.
That would be just a little more than what they're getting now. Maybe that's where we should, if we're thinking of the cell phone too, just make it as part of that. Let me tell you a little bit about, as I understand it, you guys can help me out. But the $300 a month that was in salary now, but university sees that as a travel allowance or car allowance. And so it affects their benefits and retirement, but they have to pay taxes on it. Where if you'd split it out, then they wouldn't have those taxes on that. So that's another thing that's a concern.
And I know that's splitting it out in the 22 counties that are in District 1. Other districts are different story. 22 counties that are in District 1. I believe there's 6 county vehicles, so the other 16 county, well, it's actually 15, because we have Dalvin Park approved. That is a separate, like Commissioner George said, separate line item. I know in my former county, that's what it was. It was really separate. It wasn't. And I think it really just has to do with, don't get me stepping outside of my area of expertise, but how it's worded, how it's positioned on a budget, how it can be subject to taxes.
So you support splitting that out, commissioners?
Yeah, I think, you know, it was several years ago, before I came into Potter County, they did this because there was some policy, they said they weren't gonna pay a car allowance. And so they just folded it into salary.
And I wasn't made aware until just now that was even considered. I thought the fuel cards are handy for me and what we do, because I might say in the month of November or December, I might not utilize that card. But I just got back from GC AAA where I traveled to Corpus Christi. I obviously had to use that quite a bit, so there's sure some swings. Now, our travel's not constant by.
And let me clarify, if you go out of the area for training or whatever, that would still be reported under your education and travel, so that wouldn't be part of your allowance.
And that's just.
And so I see the cell phones were removed, cut from the budget, because I see them requested, but then taken out.
Right, we had originally pulled all the cell phone allowances out for specific approval.
Would y'all like to speak to the cell phone request?
Well, I know that my business cards are regularly handed out. They do have my cell phone number on them, and it gets used, especially if I'm across town in Bernadette or Sarah. And Tina did a call requesting me that that's used a day or two, so that I don't have to come back and forth. And I still do my best to handle any phone calls, any issues that I can over the telephone, even when I'm not in town. 3 or 34-hour break while I was at TC AAA because I had a big pile. And the last thing I want to do is make people wait for 10 or 12 days. At that time, their issue was the most urgent.
And operations too, they calling, texting, Sunday at 9 o'clock at night, and, you know, it's, you know, constant. They don't pay attention to hours.
So you're asking for just the agent positions, is that right, for the cell phone accounts?
As far as I know.
Okay. And then I have a couple of other counties that do give cell phone allowance to agents. I've got Oldham, Dallam, Frisco, and Hill counties. So just for discussion, but I wanted to make everybody aware of that. Commissioner Arnold, what are your thoughts? You've been out in the field. What do you think?
Well, when I was out in the field, we didn't have.
You have cell phone.
We had a can of.
And they even have cars?
Did they have cars?
No, we had a lot. No, it wasn't that bad. I don't know, I kind of go back to the 300 plus 150, and I think, you know, the 150 a month for gas is a little bit more than the 2,000, I think, that we did have budgeted, if that was, if I remember right. Now, there was one.
2,000 per agent.
Yeah, 2,000. I don't know. Can I get us something on
We don't get anything, our budget's slim. We got cheap travel for everything.
So, Commissioner Vaughn, what do you think?
You know, the experiences in the field, that, certainly would, seem to work. Inclusive.
I don't have a problem with it. It's part of your job, they're calling you at 9:30 and 79. I get those too, it's usually the media though. So what do you think, Commissioner Kelly?
I agree with you.
Anything else?
The only other increase that we have is in our dues, and that's because we are, I won't say required, but I will say very strongly suggested to be involved. I've got TC AAA, which is Texas County Agriculture Agents Association, the Texas 4-H Agents Association, Texas Extension Agents for Family and Consumer Science, dues for all sorts of different stuff have continued to increase over, just in my almost 2 years, I've seen 2 jumps. The TC AAA dues. So that becomes a burden at times to pick and choose which professional organizations you're involved.
Plus, we're trying to get into other civic, you know, organizations, trying to expand knowledge of what we do.
And I know that's one thing we've discussed, Judge, on the, on several of the agent positions, but really trying to get into a lot of our local nonprofits. I know in East Amarillo, we talk about Los Patios, attending those meetings, which the fees are nominal, and they're $25 a year or $50 or something along those lines, but just trying to have a more intentional focus on other areas of the county and some adding some diversity, which has always kind of been up for discussion.
So that's an increase of 2,300 somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Just an increase of
400. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna take a 10-minute break. Okay, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, you just phoned
Of course, I was. When you get ready to jump out of the airplane. You know, way off. Yeah, but you know, these were secrets. I think we've got this. They probably did it on purpose, so stop Well, we gotta put the heater in.
Well, I sent some to the email, so. All of them.
Real lights on, I've got.
You got that looked down.
They wear a one arm.
Went over. It makes such a great circle in there. She has.
We are reviewing the 100% right now. So that was a job. So that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Get a 1.9 and say that that's what it is. On my budget. This is your professional service. Go back and ask the
Yes, I know. And
And I said, did you plan it because it was budget day that you started?
Okay, we're back.
Trying to warm up. Exercise.
Well, hi there.
Go back a minute.
We're gonna go back to, extension agent real fast. Leon has something he wants to add. Hang on just a second.
I would like us to see us leave that dues at 900. That gives each of the agents at $300 for dues. And I think that's more than any one association charges for their dues, those associations. And if we pay one association dues, I think that's enough. That's fine.
Does anybody else agree with that?
I don't disagree.
I don't disagree with that.
As opposed to the 1350?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just leave it at
Like
9.
last.
Leave it at 9? Okay.
Okay.
I'll make sure that they know that was changed since they're not.
Move on, how are you doing?
Good.
Good. So you are asking for a new vehicle?
No, this is 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, you are not asking for, I'm so sorry.
Don't we I got one?
You already have one.
I'm happy.
You got the police package and you're good, right?
Yeah.
All's good.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I don't know if we got deleted, but the radio situation was taken care of.
Right. That was in this year's budget, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're good. So you actually cut $300 out.
Yeah, yep. And, I mean, I try to really keep it realistically.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Excellent.
That's all you have then, right? Is that?
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
I don't know if she has it on the screen, if there's any other changes. I didn't see the 300 that it cut around.
Oh, stationers.
Okay, so that went back to 500, the stationery and supply.
No, the stationery supplies was
It was 800,
at 800.
but you put it back to 500. The current.
I kind of that.
That's right, okay.
Okay. Constables 1, 2, and 4. We have new vehicles for all. Did we cut one of those out, Carrie?
Precinct 2, actually, we're elected precinct 4.
Okay, precinct 1. And your vehicle is just,
It's bad.
it's on its last
It's-
wheel.
But, you know, I'm gonna stand up for her too, versus, they're both hand-me-downs from the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office got rid of them because they were getting worn out.
Right.
And we've made them new for 3 years, and now it's just, you know, they've outlived their law enforcement life.
What year model is yours?
Mine, I think, is a 2009 Ford pickup truck.
What's yours?
Mine is a 2011.
2011.
Yes.
This is the,
It's the Chevy Tahoe.
Two-wheel drive. Mine's a four-wheel drive. Mine has 130, almost 133,000, hers has 100.
It's about 113,000. And like the constable said, once it was given to us, it's really not a useful law enforcement vehicle, and we did make it work. And we're definitely both in need. There's been several times where the Rolling Bridge had to come pick my vehicle up and take it to the shop and get it back and working order for me. So my vehicle's just in bad shape as well.
So you've been putting Band-Aids on those for
Yes, sir, I am.
And actually, my seat, I told Commissioner Gia that my seat actually caught fire today. So this morning, I was certain the day when I come back, the seats never work. It's electronic, but it's never worked because it's been busted since I got the truck. And for some reason, one of the motors under there just started smoldering and caught the little foam. And I was able, I got a squirt bottle of water and was able to put it down.
yeah. Well, that's what you call a hot seat right there. Just saying.
Carrie, what we're seeing on this screen is this constable 1. Is that, quick question on the uniforms, it's at 1,000. Was precinct 3 at 1,400 on the uniforms? I didn't know if we were looking at keeping that even across the board. I might have missed. Should they be even, Jen?
Yeah, I think they should, are they not the same?
And when we moved money into, possible precinct 3, maybe her vest, did you get a new vest this year? Did you get a new vest this year?
It's just an electronic thing.
Yes,
So that's why this was.
So can we move his back to 1,000 to be even with the other?
Did he already buy it this year, or is it coming up?
Yeah.
You could, yes.
Yeah, so we can move it on.
So it can be constant.
Yeah, just because constable 3 was listed with the 1,400, just to make sure they're all. I didn't mean to pull back. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, was that so your vehicle's the only
thing is, yes, ma'am.
That's
That's
it. I
it.
mean, everything else pretty much, I guess, stay the same. It's just vehicles, because
So what'd you do about your car, your seat,
actually, it was real hot, so I got to go to the sheriff's barn, got a squirt bottle of water and squirt it around there, make sure it was out.
Very sophisticated science.
Very.
It was either that or call the fire department, or I could have stood out and just let it burn. I guess.
So obviously it's something with electronics.
Yeah, I unplugged all those seat motors. The seats never work because it's always been
So
busted
let me get
out.
this right, you poured water on electronics.
Well, I'd already unplugged it. It wasn't running, so. Yeah, I'd already unplugged it all. I mean, it was either that or I had to get something up in there.
So it's not drivable right now?
It's drivable.
It is?
It is the motors, because I unplugged it and the foam's not burning now underneath the seat. So the motor's running.
So
So Constable, Jackson, you
Yes, sir.
It's, been told, a number of times.
It has, and I was wrong, and Rich was present to, bear witness to that, and I have numerous receipts where I took mine to get it made its own as well, but anybody with knowledge about law enforcement know that once it get over 100,000+ miles, and that's really pushing it. And like we said earlier, we just made it work for us for the last 3 months. So we had pretty much no say, so we definitely depend on vehicles for us to conduct our work.
I agree.
Just so the court is aware, Constable Words, I did ask in terms of repairs and what has happened on the vehicle, and he did provide, saying 2,439 was paid to All-Star Ford in August of 2014, and then roughly 3,000 in November of 13. So I was just asking for.
And the transmission in mine is starting to do what it did when I first got it, that, the G Messer Ford one, so.
So what are we looking at as far as, vehicle costs?
Well, right now, the only one in there, yeah, 45,000. The only one in there is Constable Precinct.
And some of that is the cage that she has in her vehicle, will not switch over to the new model. The newer model, we modeled ours right after the sheriff's office. Same lights, same cage, same rifle and shotgun rack as all the sheriff's office. Right now, I don't have a rifle, shotgun rack, I like mine in the back end, and I've never had a cage in my vehicle. I got one from the police department, but it didn't fit because it was for a car instead of. And they're modeled, you know, I went right after the sheriff's office, bid specs on vehicle, and I went out to the barn and what lights they have. The light bar I have on top of my truck was donated from Panther PD, and it's at least probably 10 years old.
So, we're not getting Maurice one, huh?
He's already got. The only one in there right now is
Constable, and
Jack, she's in the same boat I am.
And I can guarantee you, we at Constable will make those vehicles last, I know, a good 10+ years. We are the only ones who will be driving the vehicles. I know the sheriff every, shift driving the vehicle. One person driving the vehicle, we'll definitely make those vehicles last, but.
Well, we do the dependable vehicles because we do the same law enforcement. And some people don't look at us as law enforcement, they think we just go serve papers, but, you know, we're making traffic stops, working drug houses.
And you guys are bringing in money.
Yes.
All four of you.
I'm, actually, my budget this past budget year, I'm scheduled, if I keep the next 2 months with what my average is, I will have funded my office out of civil defense.
Carrie, do you have anything to show that increase in revenue anywhere?
I don't have the actual date, but I can tell you what we're estimating for next year. Just in fees of office, the current budget for Constable 1 is 56.5, and we're estimating that he'll bring in 80,000 next year at the rate he's going now. Constable 2 is currently at 32, and we're estimating 21. Constable 3 is currently at 15, and we estimate 16. And Constable 4 is at 42, and we're estimating 54.
And I know.
So you two have the biggest revenue, we're expecting the biggest revenue for you.
I hadn't seen Paula before this, and currently, as of July 1st, I'm at about 62,367, and she's at 42,450. I'm averaging about, instead of fees, $7,009 a month.
And the 42 is not including this month. I'm already at the average of, 5,000. So we're
I'm
at
at
47. So I mean,
this month.
So you already meet.
meeting pass, yes.
Carrie, how does that compare to 3 years ago, 4 years ago? And you just have to be the exact figure, I'm just interested to know if it was 2,000 compared to.
Tremendous upset.
Yeah, just for the sake of discussion, I guess.
On the Constable 1, back in 2011, the total was 41, and we're estimating 80. 2 was 11, we're estimating 21. 3 was $47, and we're estimating 16. And 4 was 300, and we're estimating 54.
Big difference.
We're definitely taking pride in what we do. We're really just trying to change the name of constables and.
It's there for a while, it wasn't very good. And now them stating on, you can go down there and they know about us, because they know we're all working. We're doing what, when I first took office, Commissioner Kelly says, just do your work, and that's what we're doing, we're working. I can't afford to take a day off, my papers stack up.
Well, I think we need to add that vehicle back in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's mine.
I would agree with that.
Anybody else have anything to say? You agree?
No, say it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie, can we just spot check the budget worksheet there? It was 46 and starting on page 46, just to make sure there was no other variances. I was just kind of looking through it there quickly, but. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is facilities maintenance. Mike, we went through, we looked at a couple of projects you're doing, you're spending, how much money on the auditorium? 27,000.
I went through it and ranked them, the request of this department was to cut 15%, which is $254,000. Of course, the projects with the fire department, district clerk, I'll remove them, I'll let them discuss those. So on the auditorium, being project 1, project 2 is the auditorium for professional services. And project 3 is the replacement. If you remove those 3 projects, it would be $48,000.
Can you be more specific on exactly what you're doing?
On the particular project,
Yeah.
the auditorium is to go through, we had that within this year's current budget to go through, redo the plaster, the paint on the ceilings, the cornice molding, where we had water leaks up above. This year, Nick and I backed up, we evaluated it, we went up top and used that money to repair, to seal the concrete in our mechanical areas to where water wouldn't penetrate through. So now we were asking to put that back into the auditorium to repaint it. The item 2 on the auditorium HVAC, you cannot hear in that auditorium. This is kind of a 3-task project. One of our mechanical engineers, I visited with him, he sent me a proposal to do the first task this year, evaluate, assess the issue. For this fee right here, next year I would bring that project to you to give you a total project cost of what it would take to remedy the situation there. Project 3 on the exterior window replacement, we'd actually had 3 units under this current year's budget to replace. Nick visited with our local contractors, and there's a different method to, instead of completely removing them, you can explain.
Yeah, instead of removing the entire window frame itself, we can actually just go in and remove the glass. So instead of having to scale off the side of the building with somebody where we can only do 2 or 3 windows a day, we have the opportunity to go in the building and actually complete all the windows. There's a lot more broken windows than what we anticipated.
This is throughout the whole building?
Throughout the entire building, yeah. I think
We got 720 windows.
How many were broken?
we had
17.
17.
That's 17 cracked something.
Where in our package, as you're curious, the listing of the,
It's on page 16 of your budget worksheet.
okay, thank you. I'm following you now.
So out of the 3, what most important to you is the auditorium? Just fixing that right now, is that?
Out of all of those, or just those 3?
Just those 3.
Those 3 right there.
Could we, what I'm asking is, could we just do the window replacement right now and wait on the repainting and HVAC? Can we do that? How much would that be? How much would that put back in?
13,000.
If you're just doing the windows, it's 13,824.
How much was the repainting and HVAC?
Y'all gonna have this sheet?
Yeah, we did. Okay, just asking.
27,776 was your paint,
Okay.
and then 6550 was your HVAC.
Okay, that almost pays for a new vehicle. So could we do those next time?
On item 1 and 2.
Do the windows, but not the repaint and HVAC, is that good? Can we do that? Is there anything else you got we can wait till next year?
Those are the only things, these others are critical projects that you've got.
So all the rest from 3 to 10 are still in the budget, just to make sure I'm following you, Judge? No.
3 to
All of them.
all of them.
So the only one that's remaining is the windows, is that right now?
Well, I personally, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know, that was.
Okay,
What page are we on, Carrie?
item 4 and 6 on my list.
Yeah.
You've got to do that, you've got your replacement of one wall, 12 York chiller compressor has to be done. Item 6 really has to be done. And your terracotta, that's where we brought in the architect last year to do the assessment and what brought the cost to us this year.
The $500,000 one?
That's for the top 3 tiers of the building. We currently have damage up there due to this issue.